Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com and RockAuto.com. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, John Davis.
Thank you, Alec Webb, and welcome everyone to MotorWeek podcast number 232. I am John Davis. Last time I looked, and joining me are senior executive producer Dave Scrivener.
Hi.
Over the edge reporter Greg Carlos.
I switched to straws this week.
Looking much more socially acceptable. And our online content coordinator, Jessica Ray.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. We got a lot to cover today, a lot of new vehicle intros in the last couple of weeks. We've got a lightning round, a viewer question, and we'll see if anyone's got a rant and rave. But Dave Scrivener, let's start off with you. Coming in September is our 40th anniversary. And you are just getting ready as we do this podcast today to start the 40th anniversary Goss's Garage production. Can you tell us a little bit what it's like?
I'm in the garage as we speak here, John. We're setting up. Production starts in about 5 days for the whole season's worth of Goss segments. We're trying to bang out 26 or 27 segments in 9 days down here. We've revised the set entirely for the new season for our anniversary. We've got a new assets to the set and new elements and TV screens and workbenches. But we're working under the COVID restrictions. We can only have 5 people in the room at one time. So we're going to have a skeleton crew when we go into production. So we're kind of going a bit more pre-planning than we had before, trying to get ready to wear more than one hat during this production.
So you've only got 5 people in there, including Pat Goss and yourself. So you've really got, and then you've got 3 people,
2
basically.
camera operators.
Yeah.
So I have 1 assistant, 2 cameras, me and Pat. Makeup has to come and leave. They can't stay all day. It's just cumbersome.
And you're wearing 2 big hats. Besides producer, you're also director this year?
Yes, I'll be the director this year of all things.
Your directorial debut?
I've done it before, but it's not my forte. So I'm learning on the job as we go here.
Can you tell us, do you envision anything, in other words, when people actually see the segments, is there anything different that they should look for?
We're trying to get more hands-on stuff with Pat so he can demonstrate things more rather than just talk about them. So I'll be doing demonstrations and we'll be shooting that separately and trying to get more practical. TV is a visual medium. We can show you how to do something. It's a little better for our viewers. So we're trying to do more of that this year.
And I take it you won't be doing a lot of in-studio interviews with special guests.
No, we're testing a remote interview setup, kind of like this Zoom thing here, to try and get some guests on the set remotely via monitor. Big test of that, get the good audio, video going. It's new to me, but we have smart engineers in the building who can help us figure it out.
Wow. Talk about operating with one hand tied behind your back. Well, let's move on to some of the new vehicles that are out because of the COVID-19 restrictions. Almost all the reveals, not almost, all the reveals are happening virtually. They are coming at a rapid pace. As a matter of fact, I pointed out on JD's Motoring Week that I just went up that one of the newest reports from analysts that look at the auto industry are now predicting over the next 4 years, there will be over 250 new model introductions. So more than 60 a year, about 50 for this year alone. And so they're coming out at a rapid pace. It's been 2 to 3 a week for the last month or so. And so we're going to talk about 3 of the newest, and we'll start with the 2021 BMW 4 Series. Just some basic details. The 430 has a 2-liter i4 turbo naturally. The M440i, a 3-liter i6, both basically, familiar BMW powertrains, arrives this fall around $50K. What else about this car? This is what we used to call the 3 Series Coupe. Is it more than just a 3 Series without 2 doors?
Well, I think we should address the massive kidney grills in the room.
Yeah.
That's the first thing everybody sees.
It-
It's there's been some designs where I say it's going to take some getting used to.
Yeah.
But this one may be the longest time to get used to. I mean, my God, they're big.
It looks like they want to emulate a pickup truck in the front end, like we can't do Ram, but this is our answer to it. I mean, it's huge, and it slants forward. Really strange.
It's definitely the most radical evolution to the kidney grills. But no, I mean it's longer, lower, wider, the same recipe for a lot of performance things within the 3 Series I'm referring to. I think it shares the same wheelbase. But this is, what should be the 3 Series coupe, and when eventually an M4 will come, this is the one that most diehard enthusiasts will want to get, the 2-door as opposed to a 4-door 3 Series.
Jessica, you did the first look on it. Want to add anything?
I mean, I think maybe I have a different perspective, considering I'm a little bit outside sort of like the legacy realm of,
No, in other words, you're too young.
Yeah.
We get that.
Well, there's a lot of people, around my age who their go-to car would be a BMW from 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And who are still, very interested in our retro reviews. Of course, I try to watch our retro reviews as much as possible to get sort of the whole scope of the thing. But, I originally, I think I had a different opinion, but it slowly grew on me. And big grills are almost like not unusual anymore. I mean, we've seen them more often. I mean, Lexus, those grills are huge. I mean, we've seen the grill on the Sienna that's coming out. I mean, it's large, and is it trying to get in like these huge grills before we don't actually need them anymore?
Well, that's a very good point. That's it. The electric cars don't need those big grills.
I mean, combustion engine needs them, but a Tesla, will it ever have a grill? No. It grew on me, but I actually do like the styling. I like the profile of the car. I also really like the rear end of it. I think it's I want to say like more modern, sort of going in the same vein as like a Hyundai or a Kia. But I think it's just the styling choices. So I just think it looks a little bit more modern. Overall, I think I like it.
Dave, do you have any impression from when you saw the material and the first drive?
No, I think I give them the camp that it's a 3 Series coupe, just renamed. But I think it's sad that the M3 has been the iconic name for BMW performance, but the hot ticket is the M4 now. So they kind of why not make the 4 the 4-door?
The best part of all is that the best part of all is that this 4 Series, which is the 2-door version of a 3 Series, will eventually have 4 doors as a 4-door Grand Coupe. It's a 4 Series Grand Coupe. So it literally hit every possible edge of the market.
Isn't it interesting that the one thing we have not talked about is performance? Because we all expect that it will be excellent and basically on par with any 3 or 4 series they've ever built before. It always seems to get better. So it doesn't seem to be any doubt. We've all been talking about the visuals, and of course the interior is basically out of a 3 Series, but I just find that very fascinating. It's going to be a very interesting car.
We haven't mentioned that all the reveals we're seeing and expect to see coming up soon will all be virtual reveals as well.
Yeah. We won't be getting in them.
Yeah. Here's my virtual opinion.
Yeah, that's really what we're doing. In a way that, we can say, well, it might drive better, but we don't really know. And it's going to be, we're still road testing cars, don't get me wrong, but a lot of the new stuff that we would be going to some place for an actual drive, that won't be happening probably for the rest of this year. So we'll have to wait till we actually get the car in here at MotorWeek for real driving impressions. Let's move on to another big player in its own field, and that is an all-new 2021 Nissan Rogue. This is kind of Nissan's bread and butter. They've gotten a lot of criticizing for not rolling out a lot of new models. 2.5-liter i4, 181 horsepower. 2 or 3 things really stand out. Number one, I think the look is very different. It goes in that slab-sided kind of Tahoe Expedition type look. Looks like it's got a little bit more glass. There's a new family hub, and I'll let somebody else talk to that, what that really means. A big digital instrument cluster coming this fall. This vehicle has got to be a success for Nissan. I mean, this is the first of their new models. They're way behind the curve. I was surprised, and actually I like the new one. I think it looks very purposeful, but that's my opinion.
Funny how when the Cherokee came out, like 2014, 2015, the new Cherokee, everybody freaked out about the headlight design where you had the daytime runners up top and you have your actual headlights and then you have fog lights below. Now, I mean, the Rogue just follows suit with so many other cars doing the same exact thing. So, I mean, the Cherokee was technically ahead of its time, but I will say.
Wait a minute. You forgot the Pontiac Aztek.
Oh, the Aztek. You're right.
Fortunately, you forgot the Pontiac Aztek.
Hey, man, it's making a comeback. But I'll speak to the family hub, and I sat in on an interview that Stephanie had with Nissan, and basically they just want to make the Rogue even more family friendly. I mean, they are taking aim at smaller families because the Rogue is not that full-size SUV, and the family hub is really that area between the driver and passenger and up to the console. So what they did differently was, instead of a traditional console that opens up, this has the winged opening from the center to ostensibly make reaching in for snacks or whatever easier to reach in and hand back to your child or whoever's in the back seat. So it's all about connectivity with wireless charging and ease of access, and that's what makes it a family hub.
Jessica, anything?
I mean, you can't go wrong with a 5-seater. I feel like they sell like hotcakes to a few different types of, families. Or, I mean, both of my parents, who are sort of almost semi-retired and don't have kids living at home, both have 5-seaters. So, I do like the new look a lot, actually. I really like the profile of the car. And so I think maybe people who might have not liked the Nissan design before of some of their crossovers might take a second look at the Rogue, specifically because of that. Because, I mean, some of the earlier generations, I even think, the Murano and the Rogue, I didn't really enjoy the styling so much, but, I think they've really sort of put it into, a design that's kind of following suit with a lot of other people and what else is successful. I mean, RAV4s are so successful. Why not try and give a similar design?
Well, I think Nissan needs to play it safe anyway. Their sales are slumping so much. Don't take any risks these days and try and build volume. But they're following a trend. And Mercedes, the new GLB, has the same look as the big GLE, that long-roofed SUV. It's not a cute ute. People don't always want a cute ute for their family. They want something that looks like a grown-up's driving it. So I think the Rogue's a good look to appeal to families who want a serious SUV that fits their size and budget.
Yeah, I personally think they've got a winner there. It's going to be reliable, and now they've made it a much more practical box, I think.
Yeah.
Speaking of practicality or lack thereof, sorry to say, that the Ford Mustang Bullitt will not be around for the 2021 model year. But lo and behold, Ford has something else. They launched this week the Ford Mustang Mach 1. 17 years since we've heard the Mach 1 name. 5-liter V8, of course, 480 horsepower, 420 pound-feet of torque. A lot of parts from the Shelby GT350, 6-speed manual and a 10-speed automatic, which is something, the automatic was something the Bullet didn't have. Spring 2021, why do the Mach 1? I mean, at this point, thank goodness it's a Mustang that's not an electric one. So,
and this is more track focused than the typical Mustang V8. So I think for those who want the cutting edge performance but still streetable, it's a great package.
Yeah, it's you got to find that middle ground between full on Shelby and, you know, a base 5-liter, and the Bullet was kind of that, even though not really. I mean, it was just a beefed up 5-liter, whereas this you can kind of look at as a toned down Shelby, I think.
I think that's right.
It does take Shelby parts, but it still uses the 5-liter naturally aspirated, which is that's a fun engine. I mean, it revs. The platform itself, the Mustang platform is great, I think. And now when you just beef it up, it's going to be that much better on the track. So I think it's going to serve its purpose and just find that perfect middle ground between, you know, everyday 5-liter and awesome track ready Shelby. Plus it's a Mach 1, and I mean the Mach 1 name is just infamous, or you know, it's just a famous brand.
No shaker hood, but we'll take it.
No, yeah, well, whatever. You can go to FCA for that and get your shakers.
Jessica, you know, there's not very many coupes left. We've actually talked about 2 of them on today's podcast, but does something like the Mustang appeal to your generation?
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. I mean, my brother's first car was a Mustang when he was, 17. He bought it in 2004. So it definitely still appeals. The price, I think, is what, you know, specifically like the Mach 1 will totally be out of the price range.
Probably a 50 grand car easy. So
there's no way. But I mean, the fact that there are so many different types of Mustangs, and then, you know, of course you have your base models, which, you know, is in a price range that people, you know, of my age can't afford. You know, so I think that people really like it. They like the styling of it. People still love loud cars. Young people still love loud cars. So, I mean, there's somebody at MPT has at our PBS station who's around my age. He has a orange one. I think it's a GT, but
he's a former intern, former MotorWeek intern.
Yes. So he has one. So I mean, it ends up just being, you know, they can't afford, you know, something like this, but, you know, the Mustang is still alive and well, and many young people still love them.
Yeah.
Looks like a really cool car. And again, we can't wait to get behind the wheel of it.
I like that pinstripe, actually. I'm not a pinstripe person, truthfully. I think sometimes they look a little cheesy, a little corny, but I actually kind of like the pinstripe options that they have.
Throwback.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move on to our lightning round. In the old days, we used to say we got 30 seconds, but let's just get everybody's opinion about this. Tesla's really been in the news in the last 2 weeks. They're talking about putting their Cybertruck factory in Texas. But even before that, they hit a milestone that a lot of us thought would be more years coming. They're the first to reach this EV milestone. The Tesla Model S Long Range Plus has an official EPA rating of 402 miles between charges. It was only 4 years ago when Tesla broke the 300-mile mark. How long do you think before we're going to be talking about 500 miles on the Tesla or anybody else?
I'm going to say 2 years. Say 2 years will be
that.
there.
That actually makes a lot of sense. There is a engineering theorem that basically says every time there's a major milestone or innovation, the next one happens twice as fast. So
Right.
that's right on that.
I'm willing to bet it's not Tesla doing the next one either.
Well, that's interesting. Who do you think it might be?
I I can't put a name to it, but
I
other
think it could
manufacturers are
be.
coming on strong in battery research. A
I
lot
think
of
it could be
investment being
GM.
made in battery
GM with that new battery they have. So,
I agree,
sensor
John. I
power.
was going to say GM.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
think they're going to shock some people with their technology because they've invested heavily, sort of behind the scenes. They're not super loud about it, but they're investing heavily, and I think they're working on something good.
So here's the question for all of us, and I'll ask it and hush up. At what point, what mileage number do we now say they are equivalent to an internal combustion engine? Or do we?
I think 400's it.
Yeah,
How many cars go more than 400 miles on a tank of gas?
I think it actually is 500. I think 400. I think 400 like would put it technically equal, but I think you have to add some room there to
Charging
separate
time.
itself, some cushion. So I'd say 500.
Okay.
What was that, Dave?
I think it's funny how the horsepower wars have kind of mirrored this. It was, 300 horsepower was something back 10 years ago. Now Camrys have it, and 500 horsepower is the new 200.
Yeah, no, the comments on our retro reviews are funny about that. That's funny, Dave.
145 horsepower Corvettes. But, no, I think figuring in charging time is also being reduced. 450, 500 miles would be a great range to normalize that.
Yeah.
Going beyond that, I don't know if the cost value equation adds up to the going
Well,
beyond.
cost is still a barrier.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not as we found out that it's not always cheap to use those DC fast chargers. I mean, it's more than what you pay at the pump in more time.
Yes.
Right. And that 20-minute charge is a lie.
Yeah.
And they're difficult. I mean, when we were at Roebling in January, I had the Porsche, and every time I took it to that fast charger that was sitting very conveniently at the nearby Walmart, it was you had to call in because nothing worked properly. It wouldn't take your credit card, and the 30 minutes or so that you thought you'd be there to get an 85% charge was an hour 20. And that's still my problem, is that they've got to do better on the infrastructure. In some ways the cart's before the horse, but still they're making those of us that didn't think they could get that range this fast believers now, because technology is accelerating. Again, I want to turn to you, Jessica, and I don't want to embarrass you because of your younger age, but how do folks in your generation, regardless of price, not talking about price, how are you looking at EVs? Do you think when you are able to afford them and have families and have a need, is that going to be your go-to based on what you're seeing?
I think so. I think a lot of people are worried about the environment, of course. And I mean, I've definitely thought about it. My next car, I would be really interested in getting a plug-in hybrid. I think work really well my commute is less than, I think it's like 15 miles. So for me, like, that works perfectly. And of course, like the younger generation is obsessed with Tesla. So they think it's like the greatest thing in the world. Everyone wants a Tesla. So I think if, car manufacturers, once they start kind of getting in line a lot with the range that Tesla can give, I think that you will definitely see a lot more young people interested in buying them. Plus, the one thing is, it's definitely out of the price range for a lot of young people, because it's hard to find something that is in the low 20s, something that's new, that's in the low 20s, which is, I think, where the Prius does really well, because it is affordable. And but I do think young people, it will be something that they are looking for, as we move forward. Gas is going to go, we've already seen it, it's going back up. It's just going to get more expensive. I mean, I think the cheapest I ever paid for gas was $1.70 something. And that's the cheapest I've ever paid for gas in my whole life. So, since I haven't been driving for decades. So gas is just going to get more expensive. We're going to see that. So people are going to try and, find vehicles that, you don't have this huge extra cost of $200, $300 a month in gas, So hybrids, plug-in electric cars are going to be, I think, very successful with that.
I agree with that. I mean, I think even for geriatrics like me, if you please, plug-in hybrids particularly have a lot of appeal. I was looking at replacing my Mini Cooper, which is a 2002, with the Mini SE, but I am a little hesitant because if it's only has a 100-mile range or so. But I don't know. We don't drive it that very far anyway. It's very appealing, and most experts agree, and I think I do too, that the majority of charging is still going to be at home. So.
Correct. Yes. And, I think I've seen it's been seen in a lot of places, but, people who work and they park in parking garages, soon half of the parking garage is going to be charging stations. It's only a matter of time before basically every time, you leave the house, you unplug, you drive to work, you park, you plug back in, and you almost have a full charge all the time. Once the infrastructure is there, it'll almost, be, you won't even be really thinking about it. So.
Okay, let's move on to our viewer question from Michael. Not sure where Michael is, but he's having trouble finding a good answer to this. So many manufacturers offer various size tires and wheels on some models. Are there any advantages or disadvantages when selecting a larger tire and wheel? Dave, would you like to start off that discussion?
Sure. I guess there is a difference in ride and handling characteristics. Your larger wheel and tire will have a thinner sidewall and will give a stiffer ride, better cornering, better handling, as there's less flex in the tire. But you will sometimes sacrifice ride quality for that, perhaps comfort. Performance tire might be noisier. So there's trade-offs and things you got to consider for every tire you look at. Manufacturers try and do a middle-of-the-road tire to please all people. You might not like the way it handles or sounds, so shopping for tires can be a way to personalize your car as well.
Yeah, it's
like the look of the bigger wheel and smaller tire, the way that feels out the wheel well better than a smaller wheel tire package. So it's personal preference a lot, but there is significant handling differences between tire sizes as well.
Yeah, it depends on the manufacturer. A lot of the times for, your Toyotas, Subarus, Nissans, wheel size is mostly for looks. Like you said, Dave, how it fills up the wheel well. They might tout that it's better performance, and they're right. Up to a certain point when you eventually get, it doesn't just keep going up and up as you get larger and wider wheels. There is a drop-off point. But yeah, for the most part, I would say for your average manufacturer, it's style. But when you get into the BMWs, Audis, or like Ford performance cars, then it's like, okay, well, there's a significant performance boost when you upgrade to the even staggered like 21-inch wheels in the back and 19s or 20s on the front.
Jessica, you drive just as many cars as the rest of us. Do you have any impressions on, given our roads in Maryland are not horrible. They're not the best, but many states have worse.
I don't know too much about tires because I think I've only bought tires once for my car. But I think, I'm definitely a middle of the line sort of person. So especially, I think in our climate where it's hot and it also gets cold and it is wet and it is snowy. And the last thing I want to be driving on is bad tires in really any of those conditions.
That brings up a really good point, because a lot of the 20-inch tires are summer performance tires. There are obviously some that are winter tires and all around tires, but a lot, if you go to Tire Rack or whoever, and you look up 20-inch tires, you see an awful lot of summer performance tires, which means they're not very good when it turns wet or icy. I have a friend lives in Detroit, and she's got an Audi TT-RS with 20-inch tires. And of course the roads there are some of the worst in the country. She has flat tires twice a year, and it's the roads, it's the summer performance tires that are on the car. She doesn't drive it much in winter, which is a good thing. But, when you start getting these very thin sidewalls, I can't prove it, but it seems to me I hear people having flats and tire issues more frequently with them than they seem to do with smaller wheels. I can't prove that, but it's certainly so I'm not sure, Michael, if you want to go up in tire size and wheel size, be thinking about the fact that manufacturers design the suspension to work with the sized wheels that come on the car. That's the best compromise. Number two, you're going to be, as Dave mentioned and Greg both, you're sacrificing ride quality with the very thin sidewalls. So be very, very careful what you wish for. You may not be happy. All right, that wraps up our MotorWeek podcast for today. I want to thank everybody for participating, Dave, Greg, and Jessica. And Greg, thank you also for being our podcast producer. Jim Bigwood back at MPT Studios. Make sure that everything sounds great when it goes up on the web. And our podcast creator, Bob Mixter, who we owe 232 of these masterpieces to. Thank you very much, Bob. For everybody else out there, please make sure that you watch MotorWeek. We're now back in full production. You can catch us on public TV stations around the country, our Motor Trend cable partner. If you miss a show, go on to our youtube.com/MotorWeek site for all of the latest road tests and a lot of specialized content you won't see anywhere else. We also, of course, don't forget our website itself, motorweek.org. And I can't even get them all in. We have PBS Living that we're on. We're also at pbs.org/MotorWeek for full episodes. If you've got a screen or a way to see or listening, you can find MotorWeek, and we hope you'll continue to do that. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for all of you out there. Thanks very much for being a part of MotorWeek.
You've been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com and RockAuto.com. For additional information on podcasts, videos, and showtimes, visit our website at MotorWeek.org. And watch MotorWeek, television's longest-running automotive magazine series, each week on your local PBS station.